Good day, Puyo Puppers! Tina here, and look! Super Nintendo games are finally on Nintendo Switch Online. This is honestly a great starting lineup, but one pleasant surprise for me personally was this little game here, Super Puyo Puyo 2. This, of course, is the Super NES or Super Famicom version of Puyo Puyo 2. Seems like just the other day I covered the first game, and now here we are with the second. Now, unlike the first game, this wasn't released in English, not in arcades or Mega Drive, not on Super NES. In fact, we wouldn't see an English release until the Neo Geo Pocket Color version, many years later. This isn't the first time Sega have released Puyo Puyo 2 in the West in a non-translated form. It was on Wii Virtual Console, it's also in Sega 3D Classics Collection, but this is the Super Famicom version, which has a few extra features not seen in the original. But of course, since this game wasn't translated from Japanese, navigating its numerous menus can be a little tricky. So today I'll be briefly running through all the menu options. I'm using the fan translation as a basis for this guide, and there's also a great guide from the folks in the English Puyo Puyo Community Discord server. I'll place a link to the guide and to the Discord server in the description below. Also, if you ever get confused, just note the number of green Puyos under each of the options. So the first option is Single Player Puyo Puyo. Selecting this option takes you to the Play Mode screen. On the left is Easy Puyo Puyo, which is a shorter campaign that teaches you the basics. On the right and the default option is Normal Puyo Puyo, which is the standard arcade mode. If you're wondering how this works, by the way, you have to gain a certain amount of points to ascend the tower. The better the score in each stage, the faster you climb. Just as a side note, the Expert Puyo Puyo mode featured in some of the console ports isn't available on this version. Let's go back to the main menu, shall we? The next two options, if you hadn't guessed from the number of Puyos underneath them, are 2-player Puyo Puyo and Multi Puyo Puyo. These are the 2-player and 4-player modes. Yep, if you had a multi-tap back in the day, you could play with 4 players, which is one of the Super Famicom version's biggest features. However, do know that the 4-player mode, as far as I can tell, is not supported by the Super NES app itself. I'll elaborate more on this later, but basically it doesn't work and you should probably ignore this option. Selecting either of these brings up the same set of options. This is the rule selection menu. If you want to just play normal Puyo Puyo, just select the first option here, titled Normal Rules, and pay no mind to the others. When you get in game, you'll see the slider here from 1 to 5. This is the spiciness, which determines the game's difficulty or handicap. Different players can select different options, so just pick whichever represents your skill level. If you don't want to mess with handicaps, just have both players select 3. If you do want to mix things up, then the other options are as follows. Point Puyos. This replaces the Garbage Puyo with Point Puyo, which adds a point bonus to your chain when cleared. Hard Puyos. This replaces the Garbage Puyo with Hard Puyo, which take 2 clears to get rid of instead of 1. 6 to clear. This changes the amount of Puyo required to clear from 4 to 6. 2 to clear. As you can imagine, this is the same but with 2 Puyo instead. The last one is Edit Rules. This offers a pretty robust set of options to tweak the rules to your liking. The options in this menu are Start Game, Create Rules, Return to Rule Selection, and Return to Title Screen. Under Create Rules are too many options to list, and to be honest, I don't know how to explain what they all do, but here's how the fan translation lists them. Multi Puyo has the same set of rule options. However, do note that you will have to select the option for the exact amount of players you have. On the left is 3 players, and on the right is 4 players. At least that's what should happen. As I mentioned earlier, while the emulation software does report to the game that a multi-tap is connected, I can't seem to have more than 2 controllers synced while using the Super NES app. If I find a solution to this, I'll update the description and put a pinned comment below. Endless Puyo is this game's endless mode. This can be played with 1 or 2 players independently of each other. Last option here is, well, options. And there's a surprising amount of tweakable options in here. These options actually are in English and are pretty self-explanatory, but the tooltips are in Japanese. Difficulty, number of games, endless mode type, sound mode, mono or stereo, controller remapping, I/O test is things like input test, sound test, and there's a few graphical options in here too. Some of the game option toggles use the Japanese terms. I'll run down the list real quick. Margin time refers to the time limit. Go over this amount of time and the game starts upping the amount of garbage Puyo sent by chains to stop the match from going on for too long. Rensa Subari is chain limit. By default, it's turned off. Turn it on and chains under this amount will not send any garbage. Rule Henka is rule change. This enables Point Puyo and Hard Puyo in one player mode. By default it's turned off, but turning it on offers a fun experience in the arcade mode. If you've played Puyo Pop for GBA, it's on by default in that game. Sosai is countering, aka offsetting. This is one of Puyo Puyo 2's defining features, and by default it's turned on. Turning this off stops you from being able to counter any garbage sent by your opponent. Similarly, Puyo refers to which game's rule set to use. By default, it's set to the rules from Puyo 2, and setting it to 1 refers to how the first game played. This turns off both margin time and offsetting completely, overriding the above options. Keijo is pre-placement. Enabling this places Puyo on the field when the match begins. Zusin is shake. This enables screen shaking when Puyos drop in the multiplayer modes. A certain opponent in single player mode activates this automatically. 4-player score display simply displays each player's score at the bottom of the screen in multi-mode. The tooltip warns that this may not be visible on some TVs due to overscan, but that's not an issue on Switch. The last option on this list is a secret one called Custom, normally only visible if you idle on the game mode menu for a moment. When the watch toggle is enabled, the multiplayer modes will change from player versus player to CPU versus CPU, allowing you to watch the computer play against itself. These options let you tweak the various difficulty settings, as well as which players use which AI in the multi-mode. Anyway, I believe that's everything. So, that's it for now. If you want to support my channel and other creative endeavors, you can support me on Patreon or use the Epic Games creator code sheepytina, or you can simply like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, or check out some of these other great videos. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope to catch you next time.